Welcome to the Invested Dads Podcast, simplifying financial topics so that you can take action and make your financial situation better. Helping you to understand the current world of financial planning and investments, here are your hosts, Josh Robb and Austin Wilson.
Hey, welcome back to the Invested Dads Podcast, a podcast where we take you on a journey to better your financial future. I am Jenna Wilson, wife of research analyst Austin Wilson at Hickson Zerker Capital Management.
And I'm Steph Robb, wife of Josh Robb, director of wealth management at Hickson Zerker Capital Management.
That they are. There's the wives for the first time ever. This is going to be interesting.
We are going to have a fun time. But
we're going to have a fun time.
We are going to be asking them some financial questions, and they are going to tell the truth about the pros and cons of being married to two people in the finance industry.
I'm sure it's not all rosy.
Probably not.
We're going to find out. But we would love it if you'd subscribe if you're not subscribed. And visit our website, sign up for our weekly newsletter where you'll get nice show notes and an email every single Thursday when our new episode comes out. That's what you can do. But as Josh said today, talking about finance and what's going on in the finance world, what they know, and what their thoughts are on certain things. So it's going to be exciting. Josh, you want to get us started? We've got a list of questions to ask our lovely brides.
All right. We'll first start with the question of how do you guys do finances in your household? Well, our households, I guess, together. But what is it like to manage money together as a couple? Any tips you've learned over the years and any thoughts on how you manage the money?
Not well. I do not finance well in our house, aside from I spend a lot of the money. That would be how I finance in our house. Jenna?
Yeah, I mean, finances have always been an open conversation in our marriage, but Austin is definitely the one who does the managing. And every once in a while, I just say, hey, honey, what's this account look like today? So he's definitely the manager. And, I just trust him completely to manage it well. Any tips, I guess, would be just to have an open line of communication and make sure that you both are on the same page about how your finances are working.
Yeah, and I would say this isn't unusual, and with a lot of clients that we work with is there's usually in most relationships one person who has more interest in finance and another one who says, you know what, I'm happy to turn that over. One less stress I need to do. And there are probably offset by other things. There's certain things. For instance, I don't do a lot of the clothes shopping, things like that. If I had to,
obviously, I see what you wear.
Not just what I wear, but for the kids.
His floral ties are all mine.
Okay, good.
But that's the thing is, that's part of the budgeting. So there has to be communication between those. If she's the one that's taking that responsibility of making sure all of our kids' clothes fit, which is a big deal for them, when they have shoes and all that fun stuff that they grow out of every 10 minutes. The idea is that needs to be part of the conversation with budgeting. And so, for Steph and I, this is what I do day in and day out. So it's natural for me to know all the balances of all of our accounts and, what we're saving in retirement. And it's not that you can't know, right?
It's not that I can't know. I prefer not to know, I would say.
And so we've, in the 18 years we've been married, we've found a routine, a rhythm of what I do and what you do, which is nice. It took us a while to get there too, I would say.
And I would say that it's not for lack of ability. I would totally think that you could, Jenna, manage our finances very well if you'd like to. But it just makes sense, I think, in our situation, just like yours, for me to handle that. But I think it's possible for anyone to do it.
I would say, too, it's knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses. For me, managing finances is not something... I am a spender. So for Josh to be able to take that on and, I know what I can spend and when I can spend it. Same with I would not trust Josh to manage our family calendar on a weekly basis. He would have no idea what's going on. I just think it's a matter of he's better at that, and I prefer for him to handle that.
So here's a question. Not on the agenda here.
Going off script.
Saver or spender? And I know the answers.
Absolute spender.
And Josh, saver.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a saver.
I like to spend, but I think I save more, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
And I like to save, but I think I spend more.
Ooh, look at
interesting.
that. I think I have the heart of a spender, but the brain of a saver. It's so funny the way I will fret over spending $15 on something and not pull the trigger for like weeks. But then if something that's $300 comes along and I'm like, I can justify that. It's no problem for me to do that. But I think it's the opposite for you where a little thing is just no big deal, but you don't want to spend the $100 on yourself or whatever.
Yeah, you have expensive hobbies.
Hey.
Well, when you said you fret, I thought you were going to make a guitar joke on that.
Yeah, that's where some money goes. All right, so number 2, ladies, what do you know about your finances? What don't you know? And is there anything that you wish you did?
Okay, so I feel like I can know whatever I want. You know, it's a very open conversation in our house, but I don't really care to know it all. Something that I do like to know is how we're saving and how we're saving for our daughters. And so we do talk about that pretty frequently. And actually, we've talked a lot with Josh about that, about how to make decisions of saving for our kids. And so just super grateful to have not only conversations with Austin, but also a lot of other professionals here in their office to make sure we make the best decisions with our money.
Josh likes to have what I lovingly call weekly budget lectures.
Is it in the calendar?
It literally every day he'll be like, okay, tonight we're going to talk about the budget. And I try to avoid it as long as possible. But it is good. I exaggerate. Maybe it's not every week, but it helps us see where our spending is, where our savings are, what goals we have coming up, you know, whether that be a vacation or an experience that we want to do. So yeah, we talk about it pretty frequently. However, with that being said, I would not say I always know exactly what our finances are because I don't choose to listen great sometimes.
And I think that kind of brings up another question. What kind of tracking or budgeting works for you? And what do you use maybe?
I think the easiest is when it comes to our kind of fun spending is we just have a separate debit card, a separate account set up, and that money is not earmarked for anything besides whatever you want to use it for. And so when you're out, if you're stopping and getting lunch or you're going to the movies, you use that debit card. And as long as there's money in that account, you don't need to justify the expense on that one. That's worked well for us. That's a no guilt spending account. Every paycheck, you just move some money there and then that's to be used for whatever. And so for us, when it comes to budgeting, because everything else is automated, we've talked about this. Bills are automated. Everything's paid out of the regular checking account. So then that just becomes the use it for whatever you want account. And I think that's helped us.
And I think we like to do things a lot. We like to go to games. We like to go on trips, weekend getaways, that kind of thing. So I think a lot of our couple spending goes towards saving up for those kind of things.
Kids sports.
And kids sports, yes. Kids in general.
I saw a statistic that was like the average cost of raising a kid through age 17 is $300 and some $1,000 per kid.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we have a 13-year-old. He has grown 3 shoe sizes since the fall.
Woo!
Yeah. So shoes alone with 4 kids in our house are expensive.
Yeah. So that's the difference. So she's buying new shoes and doing a great job. I would have bought open-toed shoes that he can just
wear forever.
They can just grow and hang over. That'd be fine. No
One
big deal.
pair for life.
Yeah, you're fine.
That's right. Cut the toes off your Crocs.
That's right. Open it up. Let it grow.
And I would say, you can maybe answer a little bit better, but we have a very flexible spending and budgeting approach. And I would refer to a blog written by the Everyday Advisor, Jess Hinks, which we'll link in the show notes, The Financial Advisor Without a Budget. And she just really talked about having mindful spending in general. And we really used to get really anal. I did about tracking every dime, tracking every dollar, knowing where it went, categorizing it. A 99-cent expense would need to get recorded. And that was a pain. And it was a stressful thing in our marriage. Just, I don't care that you spent $3. I just need to know it and put it in there. And it was just a pain. So now it's very loose because we've done all the pre-work where we've got all our bills paid out automatically. We generally know how much we're bringing in and how much we're spending on the normal stuff so that the discretionary items every month, we don't really fret about as much.
Yeah, that time period in our marriage, which was early on when we were tracking every dime, was really stressful. And I think it was not necessary stress. I think when you're going for a big goal, like if you're trying to pay off a big chunk of debt or something like that, that would really make sense to be strict about it, but we really weren't. We were just trying to have a budget because we were kind of told that's what we should do. And it didn't really work for us. So yeah, I guess find what works for you so that you don't cry over wanting to go out to eat.
That's a real example. Because
multiple times.
That was the easiest low-hanging fruit when I'm like, we spent $500 eating out last month. And like, that's easy low-hanging fruit. Let's get rice and beans and we're cutting expenses.
Oh, we have that with our kids.
Oh my goodness,
After church, if
$50.
you want to just do like the quick McDonald's
$50.
run, it is. It's about, and that was something that we were finding ourselves doing more often than we should have.
For convenience
purposes.
Oh, of course.
You get out of church at 12:15, hop right over there. But when I started realizing we're dropping $50 to eat food that is not even good for us, like that's been something that we've been better about cutting out lately. Yep. Our kids hate that we're cutting it out. So I miss that.
I would say during the week we're pretty good about planning ahead and cooking at home, except for date nights, which is taco shop, obviously, every week.
Gillick's Winery for us.
Ooh, that's a good one too. So, but on the weekends, we're a little bit more flexible. But I think at different points in your marriage, at different points in your financial situation, you have a lot more flexibility. Like when we were starting out, we didn't have as much discretionary income to be able to do as much of that. But
I also think it's coming off of how you were raised. We were raised very differently in terms of finances. So, figuring out how your mindsets work together where it's not just his way or my way, that took some adjusting for us, I would say.
Yeah, and I had to learn, I like to know where things are, and Steph is happy, our Roth IRAs. She knows what we're doing, but she doesn't care to know the balance on a weekly basis, which is, when we were talking budgeting, it was here's all the data. She didn't want all the data. And that's something, at the very beginning when she was talking about kind of where she's at and doesn't have much knowledge of where everything's at, it's partly because, over time, she's like, I don't really need to know that we added $100 to a Roth IRA this
Yeah, it's
month.
completely by choice. It's not like you won't let me be a part of it. It's I have absolutely no desire to be a part of that. So...
And that's fine. But you do know that if something were to happen to me, you call Jess and Jess will help you out and she'll take care of it all. So that's the key, is finding out what you need, what you want, and then, communicating that way.
Yep. And knowing that there are other people that are there to help us as well. That I think that's probably why we don't care, right, Steph?
Oh,
because
absolutely.
we're going to be okay. We're going to be taken care of. We're going to be guided in the right direction. If anything would ever happen to you, which it better not.
I don't. Well, and I think for me, Josh and I have been together for, so long. And I was, 15 when we started dating. So much of my life, he's been around and I've always trusted him with so much of the finances that I don't see any reason for that to change. And like you said, you have set up where I could discover whatever I want. I just don't want to. And I trust that you know what you're doing. And
all right. So what are some things you've learned about finance over the years, whether it was in school or out of school in real life situations? What are some things that you learned? And then what are some goals you have that you're hoping to achieve or that you're looking at for down the road?
What have I learned about finances? I would say probably nothing in school. Really, I don't remember ever learning anything that's actually applicable to everyday life. So that was a big adjustment to becoming an adult. And thankfully, the things I have learned have mostly been from Austin.
That is something you've both had to learn, because you are both business owners. And you've had to learn that there are things you have to do. And I know, Austin, you probably help a little bit, and I help Steph a little bit. But, you guys track all that. You guys are both running your own business where you have to be accountable, and you've learned that.
That's Jenna's least favorite part of the whole business.
It was Steph's too. It was Steph's as well. She didn't get into photography to be an accountant. She got into photography to be a photographer. And same with you, Jenna. But you learn you have to do that stuff and just tracking, right? And that's a headache, but you
I
did
remember Josh trying to set me up with QuickBooks. And I was like, I'm just going to need you to do this side of the business because it's not going to go well if I have to enter everything. So he kind of took over that for
Your
me.
accountant.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you have a minor in accounting. So I said, you can do this.
Here's the thing. I enjoy the inputting of information. I don't like the realizing that I'm spending my money on things I shouldn't be spending on, so.
So, Steph, you brought up, a story here. This photography discussion leads right into how we got to be around this table today.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It's really all because of Steph.
It is.
It's all Steph.
I am 100% responsible for this bromance of Josh and Austin. This podcast. So I was a wedding photographer, and I did Jenna and Austin's wedding, and we met at your engagement shoot. Is when I met Austin. And right away, I would say within 20 minutes, because Josh always came to the weddings, but he did not come to the engagement shoots. Within 20 minutes of meeting Austin, I said to him, Josh and you are going to love each other on the wedding day. And sure enough, you do. Right?
That was a long time ago.
I
And
think
we're still putting up with each other
We're in the parking lot and fell
That's what
down.
I was about to say.
You fell into my heart is really what happened. And since then,
I think you were realizing, wow, we have a lot in common.
I can think of two major groom things that have happened. One boy split his pants one time, and Austin falling completely down in a white tux might be one of my favorite groom stories ever.
running to his truck that he was so proud of.
Okay.
But he was running to open the door for Jenna.
I know. It was exciting. Now, I will say there were no pictures taken of my smoky burnout in front of the church. I lit them up.
Do you guys remember how cold it was on your wedding day?
Oh, yeah.
I was not.
I know. And she was wearing that leopard jacket
Yeah.
over the dress because it was like 30 degrees in December.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was freezing.
It was
So
freezing.
that's the story of how the invested dads became the invested dads.
That's right.
Well, and also then Jenna, on your honeymoon.
Yes.
They had a job opening at Hicks and Zerker. So I messaged Jenna on her honeymoon.
Yes,
and
while we're
said-
in Punta Cana.
and said, I know you're on your
you have reception
honeymoon,
there?
but
Yeah.
here's this job opening. I think you'd be a great fit. And sure enough, you were. And then you brought Austin here. So,
Yep. It's been awesome.
yep.
All right. So we need to take a little bit of a break because this is a lot of good discussion, a lot of good questions, but usually Josh and I bring the heat with the dad jokes of the week.
Do a
But
mom
I
joke.
think we got mom joke of the week today, a double
Okay.
whammy.
All right, Jen, are you ready?
Let's hear it, Steph.
Okay. Why do wives use twice as many words as their husbands?
That's a good question.
Do you have any guesses, Josh?
I'm not going to come weigh in on this one.
I will get in a lot of trouble with my answer. So no.
Because they always have to repeat themselves.
That's true.
That's a good one. You nailed it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's continue with some good questions for our ladies here. What is one financial mistake you learned from?
You got a good one.
I do. I have a good one. Okay. So when we were, a week after we'd been home from our honeymoon, right?
Within the first month,
Yes.
for sure.
So I was when we got married, I was still in college. So we got married in June, got home from our honeymoon, and it was end of June, I would say at this time. And I still had almost 2 months before school started, but I wasn't really working at this point because I was still in school. So I was a little bit like, what am I going to do with my days? So I took Josh to Petland.
Tell how we got
Guilted
to Petland.
him.
How
Oh,
did we get to Petland?
That is not a part of my story. I failed my driver's test in Indiana.
No, so
Josh told me this story.
you had in Indiana because
Wasn't the driving part.
we were Ohio. She was an Ohio resident going to school in Indiana. But then when we got married and we got an apartment, she had to change her residency to Indiana. Indiana has a law that you have to take the written test again for driving
sounds crazy.
to get your license.
And the rules are different. The rules are not the same.
There's a lot more
in
horse and
Ohio.
buggy over there.
Well, there's just little things like left turn arrows and just different from Ohio.
We have left turn arrows here. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, you can turn left in
Not in
Indiana.
my mind.
Not Ohio.
So really what it was, though, is it was the same written test a 15-and-a-half-year-old would take. So most of the questions you missed, truthfully, were on getting your permit, which is irrelevant for someone who's, in their 20s. It doesn't matter. So you missed the questions like how many hours do you need before you take your test? Like those are the questions that she didn't study for and missed. So
Yes.
we were then driving home and she was kind of sad about missing the exam. And so we stopped at a puppy store.
Yeah.
And
Josh
we
was
got
already
from there.
beat
Do you
down.
guys
He was-
remember?
Aw.
Do you remember Petland? They used to be like so much fun. They'd let you hold the puppies and
Absolutely.
Right?
We had one in the Finley
Yes,
Village Mall.
I remember. So I'm like, let's just go look at the puppies. I was sad. Well, looking quickly turned into I fell in love with this little white fur ball. Trigger was what we ended up naming her. But Trigger cost us over $1,000. And now, looking back, I cannot believe we paid that much.
And Josh was working at a nonprofit.
Yeah. Yes. And that would tell you what he would do for his bride at that point.
Yes,
Because
he wanted to help you feel better.
Though?
Yes. But I also have one more, what just came to me. This actually had to do more with my business. Was I remember out of nowhere, I felt like my wedding photography took off, where I remember having double-digit weddings. And at the end of the year, I had a major tax hit that I did not expect and definitely surprised me and was very eye-opening for the next year, which is good. But that was definitely a financial mistake I made, was not being better about tracking my spending and paying over the year for what I was bringing in that summer. So that would probably be my biggest financial mistake, aside for buying a dog, which Trigger was like my favorite dog ever.
And I'll say that's something for anybody that owns their own business is you're required to pay a certain amount on your prior tax return to be what is called safe harbored in. But if you know you're going to be making more, it's better to start paying some estimates throughout that time, because come tax time, if you get this big bill and you've not saved and kept that money there, it can be a stressful time. So, for anybody that owns their own business, your accountant will tell you how much a minimum amount you need to pay in your estimates. But if you know you're going to be making more, it's a good idea to then factor that in as well. And that's something that we learned from, to say, okay, not just what did we earn, but what do we think you're going to earn this next year, to not have that surprise at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's a good one, Steph. We actually had that too. We had that same experience. So good point. And thanks for the tips, Josh, for sure. Yeah. Big financial mistake for us was kind of what we were talking about earlier with the budgeting early on in our marriage. It just caused a lot of stress. We had an app that we chose to enter everything into it that we had spent, even if it was, $1 or whatever. What we were being taught during that time was that a budget helps you to tell your money where it's going, but really we weren't giving ourselves that freedom. We were making the budget force us to do things that ultimately cause stress. And so budgeting can be super helpful and super beneficial, but kind of how we said earlier, just make sure you do what works for you and have that open line of communication with each other. If there's an area of spending that is causing you stress one way or the other, you have to talk about it and not just let the budget run you. That's not the purpose of a budget.
Yeah, and it could be a spiral, because if you stress about your spending on food and you're a stress eater, that just spirals down, because the more stressed about your spending
expensive
on food, the more you're eating.
Back to the drive-thru.
Josh is speaking to my soul.
Yeah, and then I think another thing, not saying it works for everyone, but this is how it works for us, is you don't need to run $5 purchases by each other. That's something no one needs. It's just adding complication. We set thresholds, and maybe it's $50 or $100, that's your discretionary level. Anything over that. Yeah.
So when I send Josh to the store to get milk and he comes back with 4 bags of chips.
They were on sale.
Yeah.
They were on sale. We're buying ahead.
You always need chips.
But yeah, so we just think it bogs you down a little bit more than it has to if you every $1 or $5 or $10 you're bugging each other. So give yourself some grace. If Jenna wants to spend $50 on a pair of whatever, that's great. Or if I want to
buy a guitar.
That I asked
or Blackstone.
For. She was really pushing me to get the Blackstone.
Yeah.
Which she's
very
been
glad you did.
Eating better at home, right? See,
yeah,
it
we
all
really came out money ahead.
Yep. It's all about food for me.
And I also think it can create a level of shame sometimes in your spending, and you don't want that in your marriage, where I feel like I have to hide from Josh when I've bought a new pair of shoes or something like that. Now, 18 years later, I just bring those shoes home and I'm proud of them. So
if you put them with all your others, I won't even know there's another pair.
Exactly.
It's easy. All right. So I think both families have a similar idea of debt. But how do you think about and manage debt?
So really, I just have to give all the credit to Austin for leading our family in minimizing debt.
Time out. This whole episode is not supposed to be tooting Josh and my horn about leading our financial.
Austin is so amazing.
That's not what I did not prompt her to say this. Okay, now you're back.
Well, it's true. No, he did not prompt me, but it's also true that he has led our family very well to make purchases that don't incur a lot of debt. So we are really blessed that we don't have any debt outside of our mortgage, and we like it that way because it gives us a lot of freedom to do other things. It definitely frees up food spending and, extra spending and extra giving, fun money that we can do because we don't have car payments and things like that. So we've chosen to live in an older home and drive older vehicles because then we have more flexibility with our daily spending and all of that. So that's what's worked for us. And I'm good with it.
I would say this is an area that Josh and I were most different in how we were raised. I came from a home of two very working class parents, and I thought everybody had car payments, house payments, So when we got married and Josh was very much against having, especially a car payment, I think was one of the big ones, I was shocked. I didn't understand what he was talking about because I thought everyone had that. So over the years, I definitely see where if you can minimize that, the stress relief and the monthly release is fantastic. But that was something that I did not grow up with. I did not understand when we got married. So that's been a major mind shift for me.
Yeah, I think, when debt was cheap or free, there was 0% financing for a while. It's hard to justify not utilizing that as a tool, but as interest rates have risen, it's come back to what is the best use for your money and what else could you be doing with it?
And I think that one thing that we've gone back and forth on a few times since we've been married is credit card usage. And credit card debt is a real thing for a lot of people that a lot of people struggle with. But we've talked many times on this podcast, Josh and I, about how used properly, credit cards can actually be a pretty great tool, and gone back and forth from, using credit cards to maximize rewards and then using only debit cards and then going back to the same thing. And now we've really simplified things as well. And we're on the same page there, but it's debt, but it's not debt tool, right? So if you're paying it off every month, as we always recommend, so you're not paying any interest because those interest rates are crazy. We think that is it's a responsible way. You're using it to your advantage. And that's one way that
our big one is our airline. We have a Delta card.
Best airline in America,
I
right
agree.
there.
It's the only airline I will fly.
With kids.
With kids, especially. But that's allowed us to do a lot of our trips because whether it be if Josh is going to a conference and I'm just coming along with him, if we have enough points, my ticket's free. So I think that has been something that we've utilized a lot in the last few years. As our kids get older and we're able to escape a little bit more, just the two of us especially, we've really utilized those.
Those are the best trips. We've found out.
Hands down.
We've done a couple little getaways without any children, and oh my goodness, you forget how freeing life used to be.
I tell you what, though, we just got back.
In the airport.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll just go to Detroit Airport and hang out.
Like Josh did. He went to Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
Big round trip.
That was a round trip.
Weather.
We just went to Great Wolf Lodge. Our kids were gifted it for Christmas. That was from one of the grandparents. They gave them, money towards that. And I tell you what, we now have our kids. We have 4. Oldest is 13. Youngest is 5.5 now. It's incredible the difference from when we went a few years ago and they were younger. Like, we could actually sit down and just watch them have fun and play together. So now that the kids are getting older, I feel like we will incorporate them in some more of those bigger trips.
So you're saying there's hope.
There's hope. When the oldest one
We're
can
not there
watch
yet.
the other children, that's even better because that's free babysitting.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about debt. Now we're going to talk about saving and investing for the future, something Josh and I are extremely passionate about, but curious to get your guys' take on, why investing is so important and what are your thoughts on it?
Investing is really important for our family. And I guess I didn't really understand or didn't really consider how important it would be until we had our first daughter because she has special needs. And so we really don't know what the future holds for her. So having some investment guidance and having somebody else help us with determining what would be the best way to save for her future to make sure that she's taken care of, when she's here and we're not, is going to be something that's so important for our family. So I guess, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and so thinking about the girls is most of what my mind is focused on. So when I think about investing for the future, I mostly think about how can we set them up for success, not necessarily to set them up to provide everything that they need forever, but just to set them up for success and to help them to have a solid financial understanding, and especially for our older daughter, to make sure that she is able to be taken care of regardless of who's caring for her, that she's financially covered.
I don't want to follow that.
Well, your experience is very different than ours.
Ours is. So I would say one goal, and I don't know if this is necessarily investing for the future. Josh and I have always had a dream of having a lake house. And that is something that we've been very much saving for and, starting the process of finding. And that's not just investing financially in the future, but investing in our family. The time spent there, the ability to, I joke, as the kids become older, the forced proximity to all hang out and just spend that time together, I think is something that we really have been working towards together.
Yeah. And with that comes back to the saver versus spender mindset, in that those shorter term, those type of goals are things that I'm not always the first to get on board of, because I'm always thinking saving for retirement, saving long term. And then Steph can bring me back to say, hey, here's some things we can do along the way, and things I would miss out or not experience when I'm just focused on, hey, I need to put all this money for later. And there's things you can do now, because your kids are only a certain age for so long, and then they're gone.
I have an example of this one. We had a big argument about this. Our third born, Malachi, is a huge Tom Brady fan. Just loves Tom Brady. And I knew this would probably be his last season. So for his birthday, he was coming to Cleveland to play the Browns, and the tickets were not cheap. And I had to twist Josh's arm to get him to buy these tickets. And it was just one of the greatest experiences, getting to see that through Malachi's eyes.
But he watched the big screen the whole time, so you could have done that from home. Just saying.
No, but little experiences like that, I would say, are things that Josh has such a tunnel vision sometimes on our future and what goals he has for our family. And I would say I do occasionally bring him back to earth and say, you can't just look to the future. You have to live in the now as well. So this year, I would say we've done that with each kid, taken a different trip and spent some one-on-one time. And it has just been magical. I mean, I've loved every moment of it, and the kids have too. So that's definitely something that I would suggest is not just looking towards your future, because your kids are only young once. So getting to experience those things with them now is important too.
That is great advice, Steph. I love that. That's so cool you guys got to do that. And I know you love Tom Brady, too.
I do love Tom Brady as well. So it was also for Mom.
Hey, that's great. One thing that I think of when I think of this question is the fact that our generation is much different than other prior generations in terms of our intentionality required for saving to be able to even think about retirement. Because if we weren't putting money aside for ourselves, we don't have a pension to fall back on in most cases like prior generations did. So when I think of investing for the future, I'm thinking about money that we have to set aside now, looking 30 years out, or else we're going to be working our entire lives. So that's where I think that it's just very important for people to have a good understanding of finances, at least at basic level, compound interest, those sort of things. And something that, I hope that this podcast provides for some young people is information that we might take for granted because we live in the industry, but it's not common sense for most people to be able to just be extra intentional about it.
All right, so now we get to the fun stuff.
Oh, man, I knew this part was coming.
Jenna, how have you put up with Austin for all these years? And I know how Steph has, because I'm awesome and amazing and all that.
Going to be so
it's
nice.
Okay, she's going to get the same question.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I really struggled with this question.
It hasn't been easy.
Oh, my.
No one doubts that, Austin.
Not always.
Well, it hasn't always been easy to live with me either. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess we've just had to learn each other, and we don't always get it right. We fight, and we don't like to fight, but
no, we hate it.
Yeah, it stinks. But
it's usually my fault.
No. Yeah. But we just are trying every day to be better to each other and to do the right thing for our family and to be a team. And so that's how we put up with each other. He has to put up with me too.
Well, and I think we're rewarded for quote unquote putting up with each other, because I think we've said this since the day we got married, is marriage should be fun. And we have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot. At home, we are funny, weird individuals. And like, if people would be like taking a random video of something I said to her in the kitchen or whatever, like, I don't know, it would be hilarious because we're just goofballs, right? And we think marriage should be fun, and we try to have fun with each other, and we think that that's a healthy thing. So, Steph, what about you? I mean, I put up with Josh.
Yes.
Every day.
Anyone who knows Josh
And I
knows
love it.
the awkwardness that is Josh. So when I met my husband, we were very young. I mean,
Did he have frosted tips at that time?
Josh never had frosted
Now
tips.
he does.
They're gray. They're not frosted. They're permanent.
He did wear a lot of Abercrombie clothes and, had the prep boy all about him. But
The double polo, did he ever pull that off?
no, he did not. He did have this weird fedora hat that you used to wear a lot, and your Oakleys. Yeah.
Austin was the complete opposite, country boy.
Oh, yeah.
With the chin beard.
Oh, no, Josh had a goatee. He had a goatee.
Can we put pictures
Oh, yeah.
on the Invested
Oh, yeah.
Dads? Can we link those in the show notes?
Josh had an earring.
Yeah.
An earring, I remember.
Oh, so did Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Two.
Diamond
Oh.
stud.
Oh.
Diamond studs, because I was a diamond stud.
Did you have a puka necklace? The shell necklace?
I did.
Oh, I knew
I
it.
did, but not in college. That was in high school.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, I had 2 earrings.
No, so Josh and I were what? I think I was maybe 15 when we started dating, and you were 16, 17. And I will say, Josh has just always been my opposite, but at the same time, my best friend. Like, we have always gotten along so well. My strengths are his weaknesses a lot of times, and vice versa. And I feel like that has helped us. But yeah, we are very blessed that we have a strong community of friends around us. I think that's important, is making sure. Someone once told me, make sure you have friends who love your kids as much as you love your children. And I think we have been very blessed. So we always have that community to support us, which I think is extremely important. But yeah, no, my husband he's a unique individual. My little homeschool awkward boy sometimes, but we enjoy it.
So kind of along that vein, this is where you guys get to share some stuff that our listeners might not know. But what are some interesting tidbits about Josh, Steph,
Oh, boy.
that people might not know?
Okay.
And I probably
have
will.
one, which if any of our friends are listening, they will really appreciate this one. Do you know Josh will not cross a street if it is not a crosswalk?
Oh, I know.
And the signal is going for him.
Oh, I knew that.
Nowhere. Nowhere.
follower.
The entire group will cross, and Josh will wait on that corner until it is the right time.
I didn't used to, but I do now.
Safety first.
I love your conviction, Josh.
Do not encourage it. Do not encourage it. Yeah. Also, I have one more.
Good, because it has to be more juicy
Oh,
than
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, it's not very juicy, but do you know that Josh also fluctuates between 2 types of shirts in his wardrobe? We go from flannel to
Yep.
dad printed shirts. So
Of
he
course.
has flamingos, he has pineapples, he has donuts. So those are my 2 little
Not
weird
an
tidbits.
extra large, though.
He has also not an extra large. Absolutely. Josh thinks that he is 2 sizes larger than he is.
Don't,
At
Josh,
any
don't
time.
follow him in my footsteps.
Oh, but he also has a wide variety, 3 or 4 different pair of matching pajamas to our 10-year-old daughter. The 2 of them love to match their jammies.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What about you, Jenna?
Oh, man. So one thing that Austin is a master of is eBay. He can find anything on eBay, like even if it's something that you're like, oh, this is brand new, I'll just buy it full price. No, he can find it on eBay, new, for way less than it would cost anywhere else. So he has that great skill of shopping on eBay. What else about you? I don't know. That's
He
one
has
that
a
you
love
do
of
really well.
skinny jeans.
They weren't skinny jeans when I bought them, Steph, but I've had them for years. And I've put on
Blame it on the wash. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Blame it on the laundry.
It was the washer or me
Nope,
putting
that'd
on
be
some
me.
pounds. Yeah.
Blame
Washing
me.
machine. Yeah, so Steph did some beautiful pictures of our baby girl a little while ago, and I wore these jeans. They're not skinny. They are 34.
Mediums.
They're 34. And they're straight leg, stretchy jeans.
They are better than the bell bottoms he was wearing when we first met.
They were boot cut.
Oh, they were bell bottoms.
Do you realize Josh, to church this Sunday, wore a pair of Doc Martens that he took his driving test in?
They still work, and they're in good shape.
Would you call that just old or vintage?
They're back in style now.
They
So
are.
I am cool again.
If you hold on to things long enough, they will come back in style.
Oh, good.
But yeah, we're in the car, and I remember taking driver's ed in these shoes. So that's 20-some years.
Yeah.
I don't have any shoes that old.
You just don't take care of them, I guess.
I think that's something that's probably, well, I can guarantee it's true about both of these dads that you guys all need to know is that they are amazing dads.
Yes.
They invest in their kids. They love on their kids. They are precious with these small humans that we have in our homes. And it would be so cool for you guys to get to see them in that light too. Just, as that's how we see them. You see them as the financial experts, and we know that they're that too, but seeing them with our kids it's awesome. So just want to make sure you guys know that about each of these men, that they love their families. And
Nothing is cuter than watching your husband coach a U6 soccer team. That Josh is a great youth coach. He invests so much in these kids. I would say to a fault, a competitive person, so I can get to be a little much at the field. And Josh
we've seen you play volleyball.
Yes. Josh is the most patient person, and so as a coach, it's so sweet to get to see him coach the kids. However, I would say he is hardest on his own children when we're out there on the field, especially Malachi.
They need it. Drive them.
I didn't pay her to say that either, but I think I'll get her a nice dinner tonight.
ooh, it was worth it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing a little bit from our wives and on how they are part of the financial picture in each of our families, and how, for everybody, there's a different approach, and what works for you is, what you need to find out. And so, as always, make sure you subscribe and share this with anybody who says, I wonder what wives are really like, and the truth about Austin and Josh.
They're saints.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And then if you can, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us. And if you have any questions and would like to know more about investing, you can reach out to us on our website. You can email us at hello@theinvesteddads.com. And Austin, I think that's it.
All right. Well, until next week, have a great week. And thank you, Jenna and Steph.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Invested Dads podcast. This episode has ended, but your journey towards a better financial future doesn't have to. Head over to theinvesteddads.com to access all the links and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and we had a positive impact on your life, leave us a review, click subscribe, and don't miss the next episode. Josh Robb and Austin Wilson work for Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. All opinions expressed by Josh, Austin, or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. There is no guarantee that the statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. Securities investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment plan or strategy will be successful.